colleagues here in Geneva, our friends in Jakarta at Jakarta Hub, which is hosted by Ministry of Communication ICT in Jakarta, and special thanks to the Minister Rudiantara, who has been very supportive of the monthly briefing which gathered together the various policy communities in Jakarta, government officials, civil society, business community. Today's briefing will follow our usual patterns. We'll have 20 minutes of the summary of the major global developments. Then we'll focus on the regional developments with updates from Jakarta on Asia and Indonesia, and from Rio on developments in Brazil and Latin America. We will also then open the floor for discussion, and after the initial group discussion with the three hubs, we will then continue with the local debates about developments related to Geneva, Jakarta, and Rio. Now, could I have a next slide, please? Here is the list of main events in April, which we will discuss during the briefing. Next, please. One of the new focuses of the briefing will be on identifying trends. And you will see that during the briefing on all specific issues, we will focus on emerging trends in digital policy. As you can see, here is the summary of the developments since the beginning of the year. As you know, we use the upper arrow for the growing relevance of specific issues, equal for no major changes, and red where there was a relatively reduced relevance. And you can see what was the development around the major issue. For example, privacy and human rights has been in focus since the beginning of the year, and there is a clear trend in this field. While the other issues had the periods where they were highly relevant in the public debate and then losing the importance in the next phases. Next. You have received a two-page summary for developments and barometer developments in April, and we will go directly to the core issues. As you can see, we try to identify with this brownish ochre color those trends which have been developing, and we will follow this trend development. Security has been in the focus of the global debate over the last, during the month of April, and there is one clear trend that cybersecurity issues are increasingly addressed in various intergovernmental forums, whether they are bilateral, trilateral, multilateral. Therefore, there is a clear trend that in cybersecurity fields, governments play the leading role. Unlike the rest of the IG field, like internet governance issues where the multi-stakeholder approach is predominant. This is a clear trend. There was a meeting between United States and Russia on the renewed efforts to prevent countries from mistakenly attributing attacks to each other. Russia, India, and China met and highlighted the UN key role in cybersecurity. Another trend, apart from this growing involvement of governments, was increasing use of encryption by major internet companies. And as you can see from the list, WhatsApp, Viber, and WordPress starting using encryption for their internal traffic among the different server places. Panama paper leaks, which has been in the focus of the global public, are also, it's also example different, while we are waiting for the next slide, which is, well, this is the privacy and the generally human rights. As we noticed from this trend development, privacy and human rights issues have been in the high public visibility and focus since the beginning of the year. And in April, this trend continued. There is the question of the replacement of Safe Harbor Agreement and discussion on the EU-US Privacy Shield. Article 29 Working Group, which is the main pan-EU body for addressing data protection issues, has expressed serious concerns over complexity and public authorities' access to data. One of their questions is that this document is simply too complex to be understood by users or policymakers. Therefore, they asked for the simplification of the language. European Union Council and Parliaments adopt the new pan-European regulation on the data protection, which includes more user control of data, right to request raising of data, right to data portability, which is an interesting concept. Therefore, companies should be requested to provide easy movement of data between, let's say, Facebook and Google. That element of the EU regulation could have significant impact on the question of standardization, on the question of the new type of business model for the companies, because they wouldn't be able to control any more data which are and to keep their customers by simply difficulty of moving data between two providers, let's say Facebook, Google, and other companies. Council and UNCTAD report on data protection highlighted the core of set data protection principles. If you have been following the major IG developments, there has been quite an intensive debate on privacy and data protection. We can call it agenda framing phase, with the Germany-Brazil resolution, with the special rapporteur on privacy, and now there is a need to move into more concrete steps, and there is a need to outline the core principles. And UNCTAD, next please, started in their recent report identifying a few core principles, including openness, collection limitation, purpose specification, user limitation, security, data quality, access and correction, and accountability. We can expect more and more discussion on the question of the principles of data protection and privacy. As you are aware, there is very delicate interplay if we are framing it as a human rights issue or more data protection, standardization, and commercial issue. Next. On the question of global IG infrastructure, we have another sort of clear trend and echoing message in all statements, policy statements, and more or less most of the speeches. The first one is that existing international law applies online. Therefore, what are the major rules of existing international law? UN Charter, conventions, basically applies online. It was introduced by the UN government group of experts in 2013, and it has been a clear trend. It could be considered nowadays as international customary law, the rule that it applies online. Now, the question is how it applies. What are the principles, how to implement existing rules. Another echoing message is commitment to multi-stakeholder approach that we can also see in the many documents. This month, during the month of April, we got the news about the venue for the next Internet Governance Forum. It will be in Guadalajara in Mexico, and the dates are between 6th and 9th of December. And it will be the first Internet Governance Forum after the renewal of the mandate, and there are quite a few expectations that it moves the discussion and efficiency of the Internet Governance Forum further for the next 10 years of its operation. Next. Sustainable development and Internet and digital issues got some sort of rapprochement during the 2015, during the adoption of the SDGs in September 2015, and the clear reference to SDGs in the versus plus 10 document in December 2015. And we can see also this trend, for example, G7 foreign ministers committed to utilizing ICT in addressing global issues and achieving progress on the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. The next concrete event where this interplay could be highlighted will be the meeting in New York on 6th and 7th of June. It will be multi-stakeholder forum on science, technology, and innovation for SDG. And it will be the next occasion where the bridge between SDGs and digital issues will be again highlighted. Next. Infrastructural issues have been on the equal relevance. You can see the sign that they were not in the major focus. One major development, and this is trend in making, which is important to keep in mind, is that the countries are increasingly regulating the over-the-top services. We are referring to WhatsApp, Viber, Skype, and other services through the license issues. Therefore, they basically ask the companies, do you have the license to provide telecommunication services in our country? And this is what's happened in Morocco. The telecom regulatory authority in Morocco basically requested the foreign services to stop their over-the-top service because they didn't have adequate license to provide this type of services. This is also another trend which is gradually emerging in digital debate. European Commission launches European Cloud Initiative, which will see creation of European Open Science Cloud and deployment of European data infrastructure. It is considered by some that it is an attempt of the European governments and businesses to shift a bit of data from the servers across the ocean back to the European Union. And this is the part of the Europe's sort of way to have the more data stored closer to the users and the European continent. Another important development, which is related to conference that we had yesterday, that was conference on technology and policy making, technology innovation for digital policy, is news from the TrustWave company, which indicated that spam volume continues to decrease. And if you have been following digital policy for some time, back in 2005, it was one of the major issues at the VSIS in Tunis, the question of spam, reduction of the spam. Around 2010 or 2011, Bill Gates basically said that, according to him, it is not a policy issue, because this policy issue will be addressed by technological solution. And it seems that at least for the end users or overall traffic, there has been technical solution for a reduction of spam. This could be, of course, debated, but this is an interesting example where technology helped addressing the policy issues. Next. Net neutrality got the equal relevance with the two major developments. White House threatened to veto passage of anti-net neutrality bill by the Congress. Congress would like, the Republican-led Congress, would like to introduce the bill which would reverse decision of the Federal Communication Commission about net neutrality. And the White House basically threatened that President Obama that he would veto this type of bill. In Egypt, there is a decision to block Facebook Internet.org project after the company refused to accede to surveillance requests, according to Reuters. You remember that Internet.org project was in the focus of net neutrality. It was blocked in India, and now for these security reasons, it's also blocked in Egypt. Next. E-commerce and internet economy was in the high focus here in Geneva with the UNCTAD week on e-commerce and other issues related to e-commerce. European Commission introduced some sort of started the process, antitrust process about Google, requesting that Google is basically imposing restriction on Android devices, manufacturers and mobile network operators. As you have been following, this interplay between Google and the European Commission around the antitrust question has been quite long. UNCTAD hosted e-commerce week just across the street here in Geneva with a focus on the issues like data protection, e-trade, measuring e-commerce. They also launched the report on data protection, which we summarized around this survey of principles. WIPO had a conference on the global digital content market, sustainability and emerging economic models of the digital content. That was quite a vibrant event with quite a few artists expressing their concern when it comes to the use of digital and need for some sort of remuneration and this interplay between rights of the author to get some sort of remuneration for their work and the sharing type of the modern internet economy. Next. The UNCTAD also produced the Index 2016 of top 10 economies when it comes to the e-commerce. As you can see, the Luxembourg is in the lead. They compare the share of individual internet users, share of individual with credit cards, secure internet service per 1 million users, UPU postal reliability score, UNCTAD e-commerce index value, and Luxembourg is the first, then it's followed by Iceland, Norway, Canada, Japan, Finland, Korea, United Kingdom, Switzerland, and New Zealand. Next. On jurisdiction and legal issues, we had one relatively quiet but extremely important development. New European regulation on the data protection, which was adopted by Parliament and Council, is basically expands its territorial reach beyond EU borders by basing the protection around the protection of data of European citizens. It means that, according to the new regulation, protection of the data would be extended to any place where the data of European citizens is hosted, including mainly in the United States, but also other countries. This regulation, which is now part of the European law, will have a far-reaching consequences when it comes to the question of jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is now, through the cyber issues, extended extraterritorially, and it is practice which is used by other countries, but now it is becoming a part of the European law. Also, European regulation introduced one-stop shop where the company which has a multiple establishment like Google. Google has operations in Ireland, Spain, France. It is now accessing the question of data regulation through the country where it is legally incorporated. Therefore, where it is choose one-stop shop for dealing with the rest of the European Union, which will simplify the interaction between the companies and the European authorities. Next. IANA transition, nothing spectacularly new. There was ICANN and VeriSign are running parallel tests on the root zone management system for 90 days to verify the integrity of data contained in the root zone. That's sort of one of the major developments. And ongoing call for comments on ICANN's new draft bylaws. The draft reflects the recommendation contained in the IANA stewardship transition proposal and the accountability proposal. Therefore, we have that more or less, as you know, the IANA proposal for transition and accountability is submitted to the US authorities, who pass it to Berkman Center at Harvard to evaluate if this proposal, which new proposal meets the requirements which NTIA made on the 14th of March 2014 about the multi-stakeholder efficiency and the other points. Next. Main events in May, as you can see the list, it will be quite busy month of May. We have two highlights here. One is the VSIS Forum. VSIS Forum will be held here in Geneva. next week with quite a few events. It will be packed week. As you know, WSIS Forum is a follow-up to the action lines, different action lines of the WSIS related to e-commerce, e-education, e-trade. And these events, it's annual event when people, officials and various stakeholders gather to evaluate the progress on the implementation on various action lines, and it's called the WSIS Forum. Another event is a meeting of UN Commission on Science and Technology for Development, which will again renew the discussion on the enhanced cooperation. The new working group on enhanced cooperation is likely to be introduced during the WSIS Forum during the CSTD meeting on between 9th and 13th of May. Otherwise, it will be a very busy month with many national IGFs and the other meetings. Next. Well, at Geneva platform and the DiploFoundation on the 8th of April presentation of what happened during the month of April, there was a presentation of cybersecurity competence building trend study, how different countries are addressing the request to have more expertise, more experts involved in cybersecurity. We compared 10 OECD countries, and the result of the research is quite interesting, showing that there is a huge gap when it comes to experts to address cybersecurity issues, and there is also an interesting opportunity, economic opportunity for many countries to fill that gap, to provide university training. The leading players in this field are, according to study, Israel and Finland. They have academic courses, they have technical management courses, leadership courses in the field of cybersecurity. Yesterday we hosted a conference on technical innovation for digital diplomacy by bringing together technical experts and policymakers by trying to identify also like how the technology can help policy making. We mentioned the example of spam. We're now trying to see if there are some technological solutions for cybersecurity, net neutrality and other issues. Ongoing lead up to the WSIS Forum 2016 and upcoming events. We will in a few days have the 10th issue of the Geneva Digital Watch newsletter. On the 2nd of May, there will be discussion engaging digital actors on Geneva Digital Watch. 4th of May, discussion on the ensuring civil society voice is heard in ICANN, co-organized with ICANN. And on 31st of May, well, we'll have next briefing exactly at the end of the month, because the last Tuesday of the month will coincide with the last day in the month. Next. Well, that was all. Yes, we are now switching to local hubs, to Jakarta and Rio. Shida, could you hear us? It's always that few seconds with. Can you hear us? Or?
Can you hear us now?
Yes, yes. Go ahead, Shida. Let us know what is happening in Indonesia and Asia. What is in the focus of the local policy and regional policy circles?
I have 2 updates from Indonesia and 1 update from Asia Pacific. Regarding digital economy in Indonesia, from the last quarter of 2015, the government of Indonesia is making the digital economy as one of its priorities. Starts with the elimination of e-commerce from the investment negative list and follow up by drafting an e-commerce roadmap that collaboratively developed by several ministries and related stakeholders. Indonesia's target is to become the biggest digital economy in Southeast Asia in 2020, and one of the plans to achieve this is by having 1,000 entrepreneurs and has been implementing this program since January. And after this online update, we will have a specific offline discussion about it. Related to that, it also goes to the privacy regulation. Privacy protection is also being considered in the plan. In Asia, economies such as China, Malaysia, Singapore, Japan, South Korea, and Hong Kong already have the privacy regulations. Indonesia has identified the absence of privacy regulation as one of the main hindrances to make digital economy ecosystem works. This is one of the priorities to settle. Asia Pacific, Trans-Pacific Partnership or TPP is highlighted in this region. TPP is a free trade agreement among 12 Asia Pacific countries to name a few, like Australia, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Japan, Malaysia. And the trade minister from the TPP countries signed the final agreement last month after several years of ongoing talks. Through TPP, the participating countries seek to liberalize trade and investment and establish new rules and disciplines in the region beyond what exists in the World Trade Organization, or WTO. This FTA, envisioned as a living agreement that will be open for future members and may become a vehicle to advance a wider Asia-Pacific trade area. Indonesia, the Philippines, and South Korea have recently indicated their interest in joining TPP. There are many reservations for many Indonesian CSO regarding TPP and implications toward the access of affordable medicines. TPP is one of the subjects of the upcoming Asia-Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum in July, which will be held in Taipei. That's it from me. Thank you, Jovan.
The major challenge about TTP is basically adjusting it to the, I guess, development needs when it comes with the field of pharmaceuticals and also issues related to the information technology and I guess copyright protection. That's probably is going to be one of the focal issues and issues in the focus in discussion in the region, and as you indicating, it will be one of the important issues for the next Asian Internet Governance Forum. We are moving to Luca and Marilia in Rio. The floor is yours. Good morning.
Hello, Jürgen. Good morning, good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be with you and with our friends around the world. Actually, we're going to start with a topic that you mentioned before, which is cybercrime. Just like elsewhere in the world, cybercrime is a hot topic in Brazil. And you may remember that we left you in a cliffhanger last month when we said that the Commission on Inquiry that was created by the Brazilian Parliament was going to issue their final report after 1 year of work. That report has come out, and it's concerning because it proposes several bills that will start to be analyzed in Congress if the report is finally approved that threaten freedom of expression and privacy. For instance, one of these bills says that there won't be need for a court order for law enforcement agencies to access IP addresses of Internet users. And this was something, a provision that was protected in Marco Civil da Internet, Civil Rights Framework. Marco Civil says that a court order is required for IP addresses to be given to law enforcement. So it weakens Marco Civil in terms of privacy protection. Another provision that we have in this cybercrime report is that undue access to computers or networks may cause criminal liability, even if no kind of injury or threat was made by this undue access, even regardless of intent or of criminal intent. And this is something very concerning as well. And another provision says that platforms such as Google and Facebook, that they will need to act proactively in order to remove content that is considered offensive online. And there is no clear definition of what is offensive. It doesn't need to be criminal content itself, but content that someone has regarded as offensive to his morale, for instance. So it's a very concerning report, in spite of the fact that the Commission has heard a lot of different stakeholders throughout the process. We believe that the report just goes on the side of the opinions that were voiced by law enforcement. And this report is going to be analyzed and finally voted tomorrow. If it is indeed approved, these proposals will become actual bills that will start to be analyzed by the Brazilian Congress. So we will leave you in a cliffhanger again, and we will come back next month saying if this report was indeed approved or not, but it has already generated a reaction in the international community. During RightsCon, a letter was written by several civil society and academic organizations. There is a campaign that has been organized by EFF, considering that Brazil is a major player and a player that can influence policies and laws elsewhere. It's very important that the international community is being involved and being against these proposals.
Yes, we also had very interesting development in the operators versus over-the-top saga over the past weeks. So we actually have the national telecommunications regulator, Anatel, that only 7 days ago, on the 18th, declared that data caps on fixed internet connection could be implemented under the sole condition of notifying users. And at the same time, the president of Anatel publicly stated that the era of internet without limits was ending, was over. So those kind of reactions, those kind of statements triggered some heated reactions from the civil society organizations, particularly from consumers protection organizations that have already sued the 4 major operators that are going to implement data caps. At the same time, several consumer protection authorities that are at the state level here in Brazil. There is a decentralized system, so several consumer protection authorities, together with the federal bar associations, threatened the regulator Anatel, saying that they would have sued the Anatel for a supposed lack of impartiality unless the Anatel had reviewed its position on data caps. And surprisingly, only 3 days ago, on last Friday, Anatel backpedaled, stating that actually the data caps on fixed internet connection will not be implemented for an undefined period of time. So this issue of internet connectivity, data caps, is hitting the headlines over the past weeks. It's really at the center of the public debate. And actually, we will discuss this issue in a couple of days here in Rio at FGV in our conference on sustainable connectivity that is taking place on Friday, where we'll discuss data caps in both fixed and mobile internet connections, the zero rating practices, the national broadband plan, also the increasing role of community networks as a concrete way to expand internet connection in a sustainable fashion. And we will obviously share information with Diplo friends about this, and you will find the information and also the video recording of the conference starting from next week on our website, internet-governance.fgv.br.
Thank you, Luca. And our Brazilian IG community is fortunate to have you in Rio, since you are one of the leading experts when it comes to net neutrality. What we can see in this comparative survey is that, for example, on the Morocco example, the question of net neutrality is Morocco's authorities are trying to deal through the simple licensing agreement. In Brazil, there is an attempt to do it through the data cap, limits of the data cap. In the United States, we have it more political between FCC and the US Congress. Therefore, it will be interesting to see also the different approaches when it comes to net neutrality globally. But it was really, really useful to hear from Brazil, both on cybercrime. On cybercrime, that would be also interesting to compare the report from the Congress, which is not only in the focus of the media for the other reason, but they are doing some substantive work. They're reflecting on cyber. It would be interesting to compare it with the cybercrime convention. Brazil, as we know, is not part of this convention, but it would be interesting to compare substantively how this regulation, which was proposed in the report, relate to the substantive regulations of the cybercrime convention. Just one idea for the very agile research team at the FGV. Now we're turning to the comments phase. First, I'll give a slight priority to our friends here in Geneva, who made an effort to walk from their offices to the GAP, and then we'll move to our hubs and online participants. We can see that there was quite a busy and intensive discussion in online space. That's the Let's see, Richard Hill.
Hi, thanks for that great report from Brazil. I'm a little puzzled by the fact that data caps have created such a stir in Brazil. The data caps, of course consumers hate them, but data caps are actually fairly common, and they take two forms. One is a limit on the amount of data. The other one is a limit on the actual bandwidth. And in many countries, especially in mobile, in fixed it's not that common, but in mobile it's quite common. And then if you pay sufficient, there's no data cap. But the data caps are fairly common, I think. I'm not saying they should be, So but I'm interested why in Brazil it created a big fuss, whereas it's been accepted at least until recently elsewhere.
Now move to, we have questions from Jakarta online or from Rio. Would you like to make a summary of questions from online discussion? Because we have 3 communities. We have colleagues here in Geneva.
Pak Ibu, silakan kalau ada yang mau bertanya, nanti saya lari sambil bawa mic.
Okay, we heard. Well, I have to learn faster my Bahasa, but I couldn't get what was just indicated. Stephanie, could you?
Sure. You're right, Jovan. There is a discussion among our online participants about the remote participation platforms that will be used during the WSIS forum. So they're discussing which platforms will be used. WSIS forum will be fully supported for participants participating remotely. A few comments and a few alerts, and I'll leave the question till the end. Romina finds it very interesting that the Panama Papers leak was the result of a simple vulnerability of a website, and I think that's a sentiment that we all share, that it was simply a simple exploit. Glenn has alerted us about a Spectrum and regulators meeting today in Bogota, so thanks Glenn for the alert, and Barbara has reminded us that today is World Intellectual Property Day. Nigel also says that there will be many good sessions and the WSIS forum, including on ICANN accountability, internet fragmentation, and cybersecurity. And in fact, we will be, the Geneva Internet Platform will be reporting live. There will be live updates, and those will be on our observatory. And the question from Michael, he's asking whether or how can we expect the IGF to emphasize sustainable and inclusive growth, given that the SDGs are an underlying theme. And in fact, the underlying theme will be enabling inclusive and sustainable growth. There seems to be more questions, but I'll summarize them in a few minutes.
Excellent. Thank you, Stephanie. We move to...
There is a question from Indonesia.
Please go ahead. Indonesia. Jakarta, hello.
Thank you. Jovan, just want to ask about the news spreading about the China is blocking some content from Apple, because it is quite well known here in Indonesia, Apple content, Apple services. What is your comment about that kind of news? Thank you.
Well, that's I don't have that many details about that, but I guess this is the filtering practice which was used for some other services in addition to Apple. I don't have any specific details about this practice of Apple, but we know about some services used by Facebook, Google, and other companies in China that they are filtered, and there are copycat companies in that. Therefore, you'll have to. I'm sure that you from the region have the much more insights and on the reflections on this development. Okay. Fine. Do you have any comment, question? Yeah. Steph, you can continue with the...
Just one other question from Romina. She's asking, will the objectives related to fiduciary responsibility be attained through or after the transition of YANA functions?
Yeah. That's, I guess, is a good question for what fiduciary responsibility
yes.
Of the ICANN as a body? Could it be more specific?
We will ask Romina to elaborate.
Yeah, because this is the legal, we have to be specific on this legal term. Great. If we don't have any additional comments and questions, we can close this Q&A phase, and we will follow up Jakarta Hub with the more detailed reflections on this case of Apple and China, filtering to China. And now I would like to invite you to continue with your local discussions in the hubs in Jakarta and the hub in Rio. Do we have any other question from online community, Stephanie? Okay, thank you. Thank you. Oh, we have Luca. Luca, please go ahead.
I just wanted to provide a quick, very brief reply to Richard's question about data caps. Why they have been the object of several complaints from consumer protection organization here. There are basically two reasons. The first one is that according to Brazilian consumer code, the provision of a service or the possibility of a consumer to purchase a good cannot be limited. So data caps would represent a limit to the provision of internet access. And the second one is that is actually not really the data cap per se, but what would happen after the data caps, meaning the interruption of the connection or the dramatic slowing down of the speed. So according to Article 7 of Marco Civil, the only reason why the connection can be interrupted is when the user fails to pay the subscription. So being the user paying the subscription, the user could not be cut off the internet, basically. And also, according to Article 2 of Marco Civil, the internet has a social function. So the fact of actually limiting the possibility of user to enjoy internet connection to a monthly quite reduced data cap would actually threaten the social function, the public service function of the internet.
Thank you, Luca, for this clarification. With this comment from Luca, I would like to conclude the discussion, this global regional discussion, us in the sort of plenum, and to invite you to continue discussion in the local hubs in Jakarta, Rio, and we'll have a chat here in Geneva. In Geneva, we'll focus on the preparation for the VSIS forum, and I hope that I will see some of you in vivo here in Geneva during the VSIS forum. It's great to use e-tools, but it is even better to see you in person. And I would like to express our special appreciation for the Minister of the Antara, whose ministry hosted today's briefing in Jakarta. And a special thanks for FGV, Fetulio Vargas Foundation in Rio, for your participation and great summary of developments in Rio. Thank you very much, and see you at the end of May. And in the meantime, please follow the latest developments and updates from VSIS reporting, newsletter, and other channels. All the best. Have a nice evening, morning, day. Bye-bye. Ciao. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Now we are back to Geneva.